All right, so today we're going to look at an event. Basically, what we titled the lesson is What's Happening in Boston? It's a Massacre. So, in order to learn about the Boston Massacre, we're going to ask you guys to go through and look at a series of primary and secondary sources to get an idea of the visuals that people were left with during this major event. We're also going to ask you to go through two different newspaper accounts, one American and one English, telling the story of what happened that day in the city of Boston. Now, in order to do this, what we're going to have you guys do is actually click on a primary source worksheet and the image that's attached to it. Now, you guys are going to go ahead and open the image up so that you can have the visual in front of you, all right? You'll be able to navigate back and forth between your lesson and the visual, just like I'm doing. Now, I'm going to go ahead and model this one for you so you can see what the expectation is. When we look at sources in history, guys, first and foremost, if we can, we try to figure out whether or not this is a primary or secondary source. Now, typically speaking, if you had that information, you'd see it either in a caption or a date line. On this particular source, we really can't quite figure that out. But there's still a lot to learn here from the visuals. So let's take a look at the first question. What do you see? Be sure to describe any images, symbols, colors, and words you may think are important. All right, so let's go ahead and do just that, okay? I'm going to turn my bold off so you can see my answer separate from the question that's being asked. When we look at this image, there's a lot we need to absorb. For one, right away, the obvious thing that we see are the red coats of the English soldiers. So we should mark. Soldiers are dressed in English. Sorry about my typing. Red coats. Okay. What else do you see? Well, the first thing I would look at, what calls my eye, is right here, the central figure. Okay. With that being said, this is Crispus Attucks, which you actually learned about in your notes prior to this. So we can say Crispus Attucks is the central figure being killed. Right now, I'm going to run out of space, so I'm going to go ahead and reduce my font size just so I can keep everything in here neat and pretty. Don't worry, guys, I'm old, but I have glasses. I can read the tiny print. All right, so Crispus Attucks, center figure, being shot and killed. What I want you to look for is in this image, okay, what's the tone being set? Well, on the ground, if you look, you should see multiple English soldiers have been felled or fallen to the floor. And who actually looks like they're being aggressive? Is it, in this case, the English soldiers, or is it the colonials that surround them? Well, going with my judgment in this case, you say soldiers knocked to the ground, colonials surrounding them, okay? Soldiers knocked to the ground, colonials surrounding them, colonials waving clubs at the English. Now, being that we're working with a painting, we can take this a step further. Talk about colors, tones, all right? The entire painting, guys, is legit painted in neutrals or very, very soft earth tones. Why do you think this is? Well, if we look at this, what does it instantly draw your eye to? All the guys in the red coats, right? So we're going to make a note of that, all right? Painting, make sure I spell this right. Painting is very neutral, except for the people in the middle. All right. So, what significant events were happening between the colonists and the British at this time? Well, you guys can actually go ahead and reflect back on the notes that we took. At this point in history in this part of the world, okay, British soldiers were camping in Boston and treating colonials poorly. A series of acts, we're going to capitalize the word acts here, have been passed on the colonies by the King of England without any of their input. Okay? Which means that the colonists actually, in this case, didn't get a say or a voice in what their government was doing. Let's see. Okay, this is actually a very important point, something to definitely keep in the back of your noggins as you're working on this. Now, this is a little too small to see, and honestly, for you guys, if you have to check your notes later, that's rough. So let's enlarge that so you guys can see it. Now, ultimately, what point of view do you think this painting was made in? Meaning, if we are thinking about this painting being the English versus the American colonists, and we see the English shooting for sure, but you see a lot of the colonists surrounding them. You see the English soldiers are the ones on the ground, not so much the colonials themselves. The perspective I believe this is being painted from is, in fact, that from the English side. So we can say that this is being painted through the English point of view. I know this because the colonials are shown surrounding the English soldiers are victims on the ground. Okay? Now you guys are going to continue this activity. You'll click on Ms. Woodland at the bottom. She will take you to each subsequent page. And you guys are going to do this with each image that's actually been given to you. Take your time, ask questions, and really look for the details. Read the captions. All right, when it comes to analyzing historical documents, whether they're primary or secondary, it's important you understand what it is you're looking for. Really quick reminder, when we're talking the difference between a primary and secondary source, guys, a primary source is created by somebody who lived in the moment at the time it happened. Secondary source is somebody who's writing about the event. We could actually almost be considered what's called a tertiary or a third source, because we are looking at sources made by others that now we are reporting on. So remember that as you're going through this, all right? If it's a primary source, somebody was there when it happened, or at least was in that time. If it's secondary, they're talking about something they didn't personally experience. Good luck. Let me know what you need.